So, good evening, everyone. My name is Amber Harrison. I am an academic services officer as well as the inclusion and belonging coordinator for the School of Information Sciences. And on behalf of Wayne State School of Information Sciences, and as well as our Inclusive Excellence Committee, I'd like to warmly welcome you all tonight to our event. It is wonderful to see so many members and supporters of the library community gathered here and online to share ideas and inspiration about the best way forward during difficult times. We are truly honored to have with us Cindy Hohl, immediate past president of the American Library Association, past president of the American Indian Library Association, School of Information Sciences alumna, and recent recipient of our school's new Dean's Excellence Award. Cindy is a member of the Santee Sioux Nation and this past August became the first director of the Tribal Library Council of the Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums. The Association of Tribal Archives, Libraries, and Museums is an international nonprofit organization that maintains a network of support for Indigenous programs, provides culturally relevant programming and services, encourages collaboration among tribal and non-tribal cultural institutions, and articulates contemporary issues related to developing and sustaining the cultural sovereignty of Native nations. All of that to say, Cindy is a remarkable leader, advocate, and champion for libraries and the people they serve. Throughout her career, Cindy Hohl has been a wonderful, powerful voice for access to information, for intellectual freedom, and the vital role libraries play in building strong, informed communities. Her dedication has inspired countless librarians and educators around the world. Tonight, she'll be talking to us about library advocacy in crisis times, a topic that feels especially relevant in an era of rapid change and challenge. So please join me in giving a warm and enthusiastic welcome to our distinguished guest, Cindy Hohl.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It is such an honor to be here with all of you, and I'm so grateful for this invitation to join you tonight. I want to thank you for standing up for libraries, for being involved in the information field, and for making sure that your work as a student, as a practitioner, as a faculty member is not only seen, but honored and respected. So I thank you for your contributions to the library school program here at Wayne State University, and I thank you for the work that you do in your communities. I'm going to introduce myself in my language. As Amber shared, I'm Dakota of the Santee Sioux Nation. Hanmitakiapi. That's greetings, relatives. In Dakota, we believe that we are all related. Damakota Isan Tewate, Bidewakpa, Niobrara, Nebraska. Our village of Santee is by the beautiful Niobrara River in Nebraska. Watakoja, Lyle and Philomene. I am their granddaughter. Wawihake, Robert and Janice. I am their youngest daughter. Waina, Charlotte, Olivia, and Nina. I am their mother. Anpetu Washte. I wish you a good day. It's so important that as we bring our whole selves to our work and as we gather here, we do so in a good way. And that means that we always remember who we are and our shared responsibilities. Oftentimes you'll hear in libraries land acknowledgements that are given that sometimes don't always tell this full and complete story. So I share that in a good way with all of you this evening. so that you can understand a little bit about our culture and why it's important to begin our gatherings in that way. There was a time in this country, not that long ago, when it was illegal for Indigenous languages to be spoken, written, sang in public. And unfortunately, we continue to see those layers of oppression on the American people. As information professionals, we always strive to help bring people together. And it's important that when people are brought together, that they feel that connection. And if that is through language, that is always right. If it's through storytelling, that is also right. And as we continue to lead through library services in our communities, it's important that we remember that no one's voice should be silenced in America. These lands are for all of us, and it is our shared responsibility to one another to protect those lands and waterways for present day people and future generations to come. We need to do that through communication and sharing what's right and what's important. As we continue to advocate for information needs, it's important that as library professionals, we continue to expand the very different communication channels that are available and the unique language needs of the communities. As a descendant of people who were once told it's illegal to be your full self, I stand here proudly sharing my Dakota language with you so that you can see that it's important that we continue to be able to be our full selves in this society that we also contribute to. My grandparents were taken from our home when they were 5 years old and placed in residential boarding school. They were told that they were no longer Dakota. Their hair was cut. They were told how to dress. They were told that they would only speak English and not their mother language. They were told that it was illegal to sing, dance, and be in fellowship with one another if it didn't look in a certain manner. Those days are not that long ago. Luckily, my mother did not have the same experience. But to hear the stories of how my grandparents survived and thrived and continued to raise a big, beautiful family of Dakota people who the Creator put here for a purpose and with a glorious reason, just like everyone else. It's hard to believe that in the United States of America, these are the narratives that have been interwoven into our story. And as we talk about America's 250th coming up, and we hear all of these organizations coming together to uplift the stories of their communities, it's important that we also raise those narratives and those stories from those who have been oppressed. A land acknowledgement isn't to acknowledge that land has been stolen and not given back. A land acknowledgement is a respect protocol among the people to acknowledge their ancestors and to stand in their wholeness. So I encourage you, if you go to a program and you hear of a land acknowledgement, that you hear more about what the people are doing with their shared responsibility, and that you also think about how you can do that in your own community. Because as we know, no two communities are the same. But it's important that we continue to look at these stories and bring them to life. So whether they come from an oral storytelling tradition like my people, when I was little, we didn't have TV or telephone, we had each other. And we would sit outside under the stars in a circle and hear beautiful stories. Those are gifts to our people. And sometimes they were funny, sometimes they were scary, but there was always values that was being shared. And I absolutely love those memories. And no, none of those stories were ever written in a book. They were not published. But they remain in the hearts and minds of the people who share those stories in a good way for everyone. And that's the power of librarianship. That's what we're all here to talk about tonight, is to think about the ways that we show up in the world, in this field, and in our community. So there will always be times when we're faced with challenges. And any sound organization has a strong communication plan that sometimes focuses on crisis and what you do in those moments. But we don't always talk about that in libraries, because libraries are here to help promote the exploration and the access to information. But sometimes there are people in the community who feel that the role of the library should be different. And so as we continue to discuss what your library looks like in your community, the work that you're called to do, and who you're here to serve, it's important that we remember that the stories that bring us together and unite us are the very ones that continue to be threatened. And we must take a stand against that oppression. Dakota means the people. We're all Dakota. And so if you allow someone to tell you that you should not be able to speak your language and tell your stories and experience life through that lens, you will be silenced. And that's not fair to anyone. A lot of times librarians come to this field either for a love of learning and reading and books, and they volunteer in a library, or they start a new position before they go to library school. That's what I did. At no point in time did anyone tell me you were going to be working on the front lines of democracy. You will be upholding intellectual freedom, and you will be standing for everyone's First Amendment rights. That didn't need to be explicitly said to me, but I understood the charge because I knew what it was like to be Dakota and have those beautiful stories and be told that there was a time we couldn't say this aloud. We couldn't speak this outside of our village. Your grandparents were told that they weren't allowed. What a world we live in when anyone tells us what we can speak, read, watch, listen to. And as library professionals, it's time that we remember who we are and we bring our whole selves, even if that requires strength that you don't know that you have yet, even if that requires your education and your life experiences, and you need to put that all together to help you not only serve your community in the best way possible, but remember why you were called to this work and why you're committed to it. During my time in library school here, I had vivid memories of some robust discussions that we had online. That was pre-COVID. It was pre the world we currently live in. And I remember people were so passionate about accessing information, about sharing information, always with the best of intentions. And now here we are in 2025, facing adversity, sometimes every step of the way it feels. But I hope that you hold on to hope, in that if a Dakota girl from a village in rural Nebraska can move away to go to school, can join a field they never saw themselves in, and then rise to the top of the field to serve as president of the American Library Association, that you too have that knowledge, skill, ability, and leadership to also show up fully in your life and to bring all of that information together so that you can contribute in the best way to this profession. When I was gathering my thoughts on how best to be here with all of you this evening, I had a lot of mixed emotions because my year serving as ALA president wasn't exactly what most people would have thought it would be. And it was through those challenges that I remembered who I was each and every day. Because when you're faced with something that feels is insurmountable, we need to remember that we are the people and we are here to unite and stand strong together. You often hear the slogan, "We're stronger together," but it's true. And we know that as information professionals, because you could publish a story and it could live in a desolate place. But if that story is never told to another human being, that story will just sit there and that information will never be shared. It'll never come to life and that story will die. But as information professionals, we believe that everyone's story should be told and that we have that opportunity working in libraries to help people discover not only what's available in our collection, but to encourage their own writership. Authors and libraries, storytellers, this is this wonderful creative space where we can always help people find their leadership path forward. And whether that's through being a practitioner, an educator, or a library user, librarians are here to help writers, researchers, and everyone who just wants to enjoy life. So as I look to my leadership journey, it's important that you consider this work because I was a whole person before I entered this field, and you were too. Librarianship is my second career. I started my professional path in casino marketing. And there's a lot of similarities between the two fields because there you're creating stories, you're creating an experience, and you're bringing community together. We can say the same for libraries. And as we look at those details that empower us to serve through programs and services and robust collections, it's important that you remember your life experiences, your full knowledge, and all of the skills that you learn on the job. That's also very valuable to the field. And so while librarianship became my second career, I had a lot of experiences that helped me really define what my leadership style is. When I moved through the process to accept the nomination to run for ALA president, I talked to a lot of people, as you do when you're in that position. And I wanted to make sure that I really was the leader that was being called to this opportunity. I wanted to make sure that I was going to represent us all in the best way possible. And I wanted to make sure that we had the support that we needed through ALA. If I didn't have this experience, I don't know that I would have been able to hit the ground running as quickly as I was able to. And so I'm very grateful for all of these experiences throughout my library career, but especially for my path before this. As we continue to move through these days, it's important that we remember these opportunities will continue to evolve. We will continue to meet the information needs of our community. We will continue to conduct our research, to write, to explore what's possible, and to make sure that we are always providing people with equal access to information. One time I was giving a talk similar to this, and I was quoted in the newspaper the next day. Someone said, "Here's the ALA president." And you know what she said? I thought, oh, what did I say? They said, she said that people should have access to accurate information from credible sources. How dare she be a gatekeeper? And I thought, that should have been a non-controversial statement. But in the days where people will pick you apart and seek every opportunity to turn around your words, all you can do is make a decision in that moment. You know your intention. You know what the larger context of that discussion. And hopefully, the average reader, when they read that, if they read that, they wouldn't have felt slighted. But these are the days that we're living in, where everyone has an opinion, as always, but a lot of people have access to publish those opinions online. And so it's really important that we take that with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, we cannot carry that load. If I were to go through and read everything that was ever published about my year, I don't think there was a lot, actually, but I would hope that the majority of it was supporting my colleagues in the best way possible, representing the field of librarianship in the best way possible, and showing that leadership from any background can succeed in this field at this time for all people. I'm the first ALA president elected from the Santee Sioux Nation, the first Dakota, and it was truly an honor to serve. I use the hashtag warrior librarian because we're the Wayne State Warriors. And I often had people ask me about that. They thought that the warrior part was a part of my heritage. And I said, well, it could be, but it's because I went to Wayne State. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud to have gone to Wayne State and to pursue my journey here. I was very deliberate in that. I went through the whole list of the ALA accredited programs, and I wanted to make sure that I found a program that I connected with, even from Kansas City, Missouri. And so that's how I ended up here at Wayne State. This photo was taken at my inauguration. And these are the Native American women warriors. And we invited them to lead us in a round dance. And a round dance is an opportunity for the people to come together as one. And it is what it sounds like. We all dance together in a round, circling all of the banquet tables. And that was really an opportunity for us to unite as one in that moment, and to remember that we all have a place in this circle of life. That was July 1st, I want to say. It wasn't very long, I want to say 3 days before I started receiving news of adverse legislation being drafted once again. Attempted censorship continuing to rise, and further undue attacks on libraries and leaders in America. So while I share this with you, it's not to center this at all. I consider this a small part of what was managed during my year of serving as ALA president. But it's what I focused on the left that helped me not only continue to remember who I am and to strengthen this leadership platform. It was also an opportunity to show that leadership in the times of crisis can come in many forms. You can be someone from a small rural village and still know how to take care of the people. You can be from any library type and still have that desire to want to be the spokesperson of the field and do so in a way that is inclusive. And so that was always my goal. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just looked at as a token. And I had heard that when I campaigned. I had heard, oh, we haven't had one of you before. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? There's never been no one from Wayne State before? And they said, no, a Native American. I said, well, but that is not true. We have the incomparable Dr. Lorraine Roy, who was our first Native American president. I said, but it doesn't matter what someone's nationality or ethnicity is. It should matter what their leadership is and their experience and their ability to serve the people. So when I heard comments like that, I continued on because I knew that all of the work that I have done in the time that I've worked in this field has always been in a good way for the people. And it's not in spite of anyone else's nationality or their ethnicity. Just because you bring your whole self doesn't mean that that label should be slapped on you and anyone act like you're a token. When we look at intellectual freedom, you would think that that was the tenet of librarianship, and that everything we do is not only tied to that, but that we defend that fiercely. Then we hear about colleagues taking on soft censorship acts in their communities, because unfortunately, there's been pressure. They're concerned about the library being targeted for providing everyone with equal access to materials from the collection. They're concerned about hosting a program that might offend someone who doesn't understand the importance of sharing that information. When we look at the core values of the field, it's important that we remember why we commit to this work and why we do so every day. Coming back, making sure that the libraries are open, that we have the training we need to be successful, and that we continue to fight for what's right. I don't remember in library school anyone telling me that I was going to have to put up such effort to make sure that voices weren't silenced. But I was ready for it. Because in my community, we've known that story for all too long. When I tell my story, it's not to highlight that in a way that says, look at us, we're Ushaka people. In Dakota, that means someone who's pitiful and to be looked down on. I say that as a way of Woshida, to encourage compassion. And there's a difference there. Because what society will do to one person, if we allow that to continue, it will. And this isn't history so far back. I'm not talking about first contact. I'm not talking about when lost Europeans stumbled upon Native Americans. I'm talking about my grandparents. That's how they were treated. That's how society allowed 5-year-olds to be taken from our homes. And that was never okay. So yes, I bring my authenticity with me. And I know that we all have a different journey to share. But when you do so, you free yourself of all of that negativity. The comments, the keyboard warriors, those are not the right warriors, by the way. All of that noise that rises up if you let it, you can't forget who you are. When it was time to create some initiatives as ALA president, I immediately knew what I wanted to do with my advisory committee, who were instrumental in this work and really helped me a lot. I wanted to make sure that we centered indigeneity. I believe in talking about centering Indigenous brilliance because we're surrounded by it, no matter where we go. Whether it's the artwork in the community, whether it's a drum beat that you hear in music, whether it's the people coming together as one. to serve one another. I believe in uplifting who we are as a people so that our culture is recognized for the strength that it has. We aren't broken people. We aren't people who were led astray. Some people will tell that story, and some people will get confused about what they hear. But that's not my message to you here today. I have a column in American Libraries magazine where I wrote from the heart, and I shared with you a little bit about Native American culture. I believe in every column that I had. And I had a few people say to me, Cindy, you only talk about Native Americans. You're not being inclusive. And I said, well, I appreciate your feedback. I don't recall another time there being an American Libraries column that even spoke about Native Americans. I don't see how centering who I am in my wholeness, how that would exclude anyone. But I won't tell you how to feel. As we know, as leaders, sometimes people will challenge your thinking because they're feeling a way about the message. We can't tell them how to feel in that moment. But you can set the record straight. You can let them know exactly why you said what you said. Again, I don't believe I said anything that was controversial in American Libraries. But if people want to pick you apart, they will. And in times of crisis, that grows exponentially. When people are feeling the stressors of life from the top, the bottom, and the sides, sometimes they lash out. Sometimes they just don't like someone. But as we look at the experiences that we have, that we share with one another, that's what it means to be a leader in these times. And so while you never know exactly what's going to happen externally, what we can control, that's what we need to focus on. So it's important that for our SIS students, we talk about what we learned in library school, and that we have these robust conversations, and that we build our networks, we reach out to alumni, we support each other's work by attending these discussions, that we continue to challenge our own thinking. That's how we rise above. We all know that if you want to see the change, you have to commit to being that change. I won't say that my mere existence is a change, but when I started in libraries, I was told that I was a 1%er. And I said, what is that? And they said, only 1% of librarians are Indigenous. I said, oh, surely that's not true. I want to see the data set on that. It's important that as we continue to look at the changes that happen rapidly around us, we can't always control what's happening, as we know, but we can 100% control how we respond to it. And it's better to respond than to react. And so I always want to encourage students to continue in their studies, to think about how their research can make the world a better place. Because I believe that it can. I believe that working in libraries can help us all create the world and the community and the society that we wish to live in. When I was awarded the ALA Spectrum Scholarship Award for Changemaker, and I couldn't believe it. I truly didn't think that I was doing anything differently than any of my colleagues. I didn't think that committing to change was something to be acknowledged. I want to encourage students to do the work, to see that vision through, to introduce concepts that maybe don't exist. But there really isn't anything remarkable about my work, and I stand firm in that. My initiatives of creating a toolkit and a LibGuide, those are the tools of our trade. And while we all appreciate having access to those tools and resources, to some it was like a whole new world. You would think that I went in there and drafted all of these transcripts, manuscripts, journals, and books myself. Alas, I did not. I only wrote in American libraries and was accused of being exclusive for doing so. But that's okay. Because sometimes we just need that encouragement. And I don't share this with you to discourage you from pursuing leadership. It's rather the opposite. I share this so that you can see there are opportunities for you to lead and to get involved. And so that's what I always say to students. How can I help you? Who do we know? Who would you like to be introduced to? What's your research? What are you working on? How are you showing up in the field? If I didn't have library leaders do that for me, I probably wouldn't be standing here today. I had amazing directors who took me by the hand and said, Cindy, I want you to join ALA. I want you to join PLA. You need to join ALA, the American Indian Library Association. And so as I did that, all these opportunities to build connections, to build sustainable relationships, and to learn what library leadership looked like. A lot of those doors opened for me. But it was because I was always curious about how we help people, how we help our colleagues, how we help our community, and how information flows within the profession. So I was elected president of the American Indian Library Association in 2020. And that was a great opportunity. I absolutely loved that time because it was COVID and we got to meet online every month. And our meetings would go for hours and people would bring out recipes or sing songs or drum. People would craft and bead. We were there in community together, even though we were all individuals on a computer screen in the safety of our homes. I know that that was a unique time for all of us, but that didn't discourage me because we couldn't meet in person. It was the opposite that encouraged me to make sure that we need to meet all the time. We're going to meet every month. And before, ALA didn't have that. ALA met every year at the ALA conference if they were able to go. And so creating that community and using that platform, we still have monthly ALA meetings 5 years later. It's so important that when we see opportunities to create something bigger and better, that we do that. And students can absolutely do that. Because I was still here at Wayne State when I was president of ALA, and I was still able to see that there was an opportunity for us to continue to grow our community. So for our LIS professionals in the room and online, we always talk about what the role of the library is. It has not changed just because there are crisis moments in our communities and in our lives. The role of the library is and always will be the trusted community hub of information professionals and access to information for all. For anyone who gets confused about that, I'm not entirely sure why. Whenever you hear someone's memory of a library, the survey and the data shows it's usually positive. Yes, they remember story times when they were little. Yes, they remember checking out from their school library. Yes, they remember attending a library program, and it left a mark on their memory. And it's something that they bring with them through their lives. When we talk about the role of the library, it has to be centered around intellectual freedom, because we cannot let voices be silenced in America, and we can't leave anyone behind. In my time serving on the board of the Freedom to Read Foundation, every month we get these emails. And we would get all of the different legislation that was advancing. We'd hear about the lawsuits. And that's enough to make anyone question, gosh, should I be in this field? Is this right for me? But in me, it lit a fire because I remember what it's like to hear the stories of those who have been oppressed and silenced. I remember my grandparents telling me how they had to secretly speak Dakota on the holidays when they were allowed to go home. I remember seeing that in a lot of library collections, the majority of the materials on the shelves are only in the English language. And that leaves a lot of people behind. But looking at this slogan, free people read freely, that should absolutely be true in the United States of America. That's why we're united. And in order for us to continue to advance this work, we need to be firm in the tenets of librarianship. We need to be true to understanding that this isn't just a slogan. This is an opportunity for us to lean into this work, to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity to access information and to use that to live their best lives. The ALA provides many resources to library practitioners and really anyone who wants to access this information on the website. But when we're talking about advocacy, of course, we need to start with policy. And it's important that we have a place where we can go. And the ALA provides us with guidelines of all kinds, protocols, standards. So I encourage you to go to the website. And while you may feel like you're just one person working in one library, please remember the strength of this profession. We have 127,000 libraries in the United States alone. Public, academic, school, special, tribal libraries. Those are many opportunities to advance research, to ensure access to information, and to share our love of reading while also promoting literacy of all kinds in our communities. So for our library leaders and those who are interested in moving forward on your leadership pathway, I encourage you to build your network and to continue to show up and offer your support. It was pretty clear, since I don't say no that often, that I've met a lot of people in the 10 years I worked in libraries. And I believe in the power of people. I believe in communities coming together to support one another. And that's why I was able to continue to advance my leadership to the point of serving as ALA president. But when we talk about book banning and attempted censorship, it's important that we have the tools available to help us succeed. And those resources are also available on the ALA website. If you're facing a challenge, if you need support from the Office of Intellectual Freedom, that resource is absolutely there for you. So I shared earlier that I had presidential initiatives that I was able to introduce during my presidency. And the first is the All Nations LibGuide. And I was actually at a restaurant in Alabama when I was told it's ready to be published. And I sat there crying. And I told my kids, I said, I'm such a nerd. I'm crying over a LibGuide. But it was the first time that I saw this on the ALA website, a comprehensive resource guide that really helps researchers and scholars look to see what's available, because there's a wealth of information that's out there. And it took a Dakota president to say, I think it's time to create a LibGuide. I think that we should go ahead and have this go on online so that anyone can access this. So it's my hope that this LibGuide will continue to grow and expand over the years and be updated as it needs to. Again, this is all free and available on the ALA website. I also introduced something that's very near and dear to my heart, and there's copies out front. It is the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Relatives Toolkit. So again, this is a toolkit, but it's one that we've not seen in the National Library discussion. We haven't really heard about what this issue is. And so that's why I wanted to bring this to everyone's awareness. There is a national epidemic around Indigenous women and relatives, people who have gone missing from their communities. And at that epidemic level, you would think that this would be a matter of public safety, of health awareness. Why aren't these missing people on the news? There's a national database. And unfortunately, the registries don't always include the Native people who are missing. So as information professionals, we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Why are Native American people going missing at a much higher rate than anyone else in this country? And it's not being talked about in the mainstream media. There's a national database that is full of disparity because it doesn't include the accurate data. Why are we not aware of this from a public health standpoint? So as we know, when faced with misinformation, as information professionals, we're here to help people access information. So if anyone wasn't aware, I'm hoping that now they will be, that they will understand, because this is actually thousands of people every year. And if thousands of people went in the grocery store and never came out, that would be a whole new experience when we go back. It would be like TSA, you'd have to show your ID, maybe take off some shoes before you got your buggy, and they would make sure you were accounted for. If thousands of people went to the movie theater and never came out, they would close the movie theaters. They would say this is not safe. Why can't Native Americans walk around in this country and be safe? Why can't Native Americans come home to their families? Why are we being targeted, and why is no one helping us? This toolkit, there's two ways to look at it. It can be given to a community when they are in an active search. There's a checklist, a matrix that helps them understand how to get that information together so they can rapidly mobilize. And the second part is for libraries to understand what are the resources available. What does this look like in my community? And how can I help connect people to this information? I've heard from many different groups outside of libraries who have said, thank you. This is an amazing resource. And I say to every single one of them, this is librarianship. This is what we do. We connect people to information to help them live their best lives. And in this case, it's to help communities be reunited. So as we continue to look at information needs, sometimes it looks different from community to community. I was contacted by ATALM that I was nominated for the Guardian of Culture and Lifeways International Awards as the library leader of 2025. And I couldn't believe it because all of these elders on the stage, they've done so much good work in their communities and for their communities, archives, libraries, museums. And I thought, well, I'm too young to be recognized. That's not right. In our ways, you're not usually recognized until you've done good for your people for a long time. I didn't know that the creation of a toolkit was going to be something that really brought attention to people, but it really has. I still get emails almost every day from people asking me for more information, from people just showing appreciation and saying thank you. It was so important that we develop this toolkit though. And I had pushback from it. I had pushback from library practitioners who said, Cindy, I don't get it. Explain it to me so I can help share this information. I don't see what the problem is. while I appreciate that feedback, it was an opportunity for me to tell them exactly why they should care, as we do with any other point of life. That's what librarians are here for, to connect people to information and resources. As we advocate for the needs of our people, we want to make sure that everyone has access to information so that they can all champion the library. I'm so grateful for this invitation. And while it is the month of November, you often see Native American Heritage Month being highlighted. But my message here is simple. I'm Dakota every day. And as we continue to build out this Tribal Library Council with ATALM, it's such an exciting time to see where we can go next with this information. I was invited by School Library Journal this month to interview the brilliant author Angeline Bolee, and I hope that you'll be able to read some of her stories if you have not. So this is the last burning question everyone keeps asking me. Cindy, what's next? Where are you headed? What are you doing? I don't know. I have 20 years ahead of me. I know that the Creator will be with me. I know that I will always do what I can to help other people. Libraries, leadership, and learning, that's all very important to me. And so while you only serve as ALA president once, it was a year of many gifts, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. So I want to end here today with saying Wopi Tatanka, many thanks to you all. And I'm grateful to have served as ALA president, but I'm more grateful to be a Wayne State warrior librarian. And I thank you for joining me tonight.
Just that. We wanted to say thank you so much for all that you do and everything you're doing for libraries, what you're doing for communities. So we have a little token of our appreciation. We wanted to get you some Warrior Wayne State gear.
Great.
So we wanted to give you a sweatshirt. So
Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Oh, of course, thank you. And with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight for this informative and moving and beautiful talk about library advocacy in crisis times. And with that, we end our evening. Those online as well, thank you for joining us. If you do have questions, unfortunately, I think we've run out of time, but if you do, you know what? We have time for one question. Is there someone in the crowd, in the audience that might have one question? Anyone online? No? All right, you did a wonderful, beautiful job. Thank you. And we hope to see you again soon and to see you continuing to do the beautiful work you do for this field. So thank you, everyone. We have cider and donuts outside as well. So stay and chat for a little while. Thank you.
Thank you.